in stories which we tell one another, and in these imaginary things like gods, like nations, like money, like human rights, this is the basis that enabled Homo sapiens to cooperate in very large groups of thousands and millions and today billions, and this is our secret of success as a species.
Hello everyone, and welcome to The Matrix Exodus. And I'm going to be talking about human rights today. In 2017, I was talking to somebody about what had happened to me in an interview, and I stated to them that I believed that there was going to be an active target on the disabled population of the Western society. And I stated that I believed that was the case because they are considered a minority group, and I believe that Marxists do not want white people within the minority groups. They want only dark-skinned people, so it's just racism. So I believed that they were going to get rid of and kill off the disabled people, and I feel that I'm seeing that happening right now with experimental pharmaceuticals being used as a priority on those people. It was something that I didn't take because I was very suspicious. I know the history of communism, I know T4 action with the Nazis, I'm aware of these treatments by socialists and communists, so I didn't take it. And apparently a lot of people who are disabled did not take the injection, and that's probably because they too know the history of communism and socialism. Anyway, there's also this thing about racism. So they're claiming that if you ask for a white doctor or maybe a British doctor, then you will receive no health care whatsoever. And that actually happened to me. I was raped by an illegal immigrant. The police stood by while he was attacking me, then they just left him to attack me. So and this is all because of political correctness, so I'm very dubious and skeptical of and fearful of political correctness. I have an intense fear of political correctness, and political correctness has its roots around. So I'm in very two minds about human rights. I feel that human rights has brought on a lot of crime, a lot of harm against people, and especially native people within Western societies. However, it's there to protect apparently disabled people, but I think it's also been used and manipulated with the way that people, show their virtue these days. It's incredibly manipulated and just disgusting, really, and very deceiving. So they're saying that if you ask for a white doctor, then you cannot receive healthcare. And this happened to me. I was traumatized after I was allowed to be raped out of political correctness rape with the illegal immigrant who forced his way into my home, raped me. After I screamed for help from the police, they drove away, and then he followed me home and forced his way into my home and raped me. And I then was sent for trauma, psychological therapy for trauma, and the doctor who was dealing with me was an Asian man, and I really didn't want to talk to him about what I was going through. Like, he was the last person I wanted to talk to about what was happening. And this also happened in one of my court appearances, which had to be adjourned because the magistrates were Asian and black. And I did not want to deal with them because of the political correctness. I felt that I was absolutely restrained by political correctness and these laws of hate speech. So I didn't want to speak to those magistrates, so it got adjourned and I was amongst them. Then it was a phone court case, which was even worse. And I would not speak to the doctor who was an Asian man who was a psychologist. And I've been having a lot of trouble finding a situation which I feel comfortable in. And it's bizarre, really, because political correctness brought about my disability of trauma. It had me raped out of politeness. So political correctness is actually causing disabilities in people, which is incredible. There's a lot of, here it says around 40% of the NHS's doctors are from minority backgrounds. So that means that almost half of them are, and I've decided to abandon the NHS since what I saw with lockdowns and also with the remedy for what they're calling a pandemic. I really didn't like the idea that they were experimenting first on the elderly and the disabled people, and I don't like this whole targeting the patients, calling them racists if they don't want to deal with people from minority backgrounds. I mean, one of the other problems is not just trauma in victims who have been harmed through political correctness, but also there's elderly people or hard of hearing people who can't actually hear or understand these strong accents. And I am really bad for understanding the Irish and the Indian accent. I mean, I just don't get it. And I was phoning my phone company and I was talking to this Irish man and he was saying, "Hello there, can you give me the character tree for your security question?" And I was looking at my son and I was saying, "What character tree?" And I said, "I don't know, what is it? Can you repeat that?" And he said, "Can you give me character tree of a security question?" I was like, "What? Character tree?" And I said to my son, "What is this character tree? What is a character tree?" Because I thought had the idea of a tree in my head and this character popping from the tree. And I said, "I don't know what the character tree is." And he said, no, the third character." I was like, "The third character? A third character? What is this third and tree character?" And my son was on the floor rolling, laughing, because he just had tears in his eyes because we couldn't understand his accent. And I said, I don't know what a tree or a third character is." I was thinking in my head, is this an Irish thing? And it was. He can't say three, can he? And I can't say three, but I did not understand what he was saying. So if that was in a medical scene, you know, I would have so much difficulty with an Irish accent. And I would have so much difficulty with an Indian accent. I just can't cope with understanding either. And that's not a race thing. That's just an understanding and an ability to understand what they're saying because of their strong accents. And I think that these people take offence to it. But I think this is another reason why we need to be amongst our own people, because we understand the accents a lot better. But when you've got strong accents coming from elsewhere, it's very hard to understand what they're saying. So I don't think that's racism. That's just difficulty understanding, and you shouldn't be shamed for that. That's their fault for placing people who have, you know, strong accents amongst people who are hard of hearing or whatever reason. You know, they shouldn't be sending all this work out to sort of other people, I don't think. Anyway, if they get rid of the human rights, you know, and I'm concerned that the disabled will be targeted as soon as it is, because I do believe that this is to get rid of the white minority groups. And I do believe that gays, homosexuals will be targeted after the disabled, because that's happened in the past as well. Then what replaces it? Because how do you know that it's written in a way which cannot be manipulated through its interpretation? And another question that I have, and just here, you know, this is one of the arguments which I made in my own court case, because they call rape victims survivors. and they keep referring to them as survivors. And in my court case, I said that I really hated being called a survivor because I'm not allowed to talk about this type of rape. It can cause offence, which then becomes a hate speech crime, non-crime thing. And so I'm actually still a victim of this crime until you get rid of all this political correctness. And again, you know, this is rape crisis, calling these people rape survivors, which I disagree. I don't think that I am a rape survivor. And again, Psychology Today, doctors there saying, oh yeah, these are called rape survivors. And I asked the woman, I did go to victim support after I reported the crime to the police, and I said, why do you keep calling me a survivor? And she said, oh, that's what we're told to call you now. And I said, well, who's telling you to tell me this? Is it someone who's been through it, or is it an academic? And she said, oh, well, it's academics usually. And I said, yeah, because they can be quite manipulative. And they are. They're very manipulative. We know that they are, because through the pandemic, which we're told happened, the whole scenario was set up and laid out by psychologists, so-called leading psychologists, who were there to nudge. They were called the nudge unit in the UK. So we know that psychologists use manipulative language, and I would not hesitate to think that it would be psychologists who were behind the writing of all laws currently. I'm pretty sure that they are. And this is just something that I wanted to also make clear, that these leading people also call hate speech victims. They don't call them hate speech survivors, they call them hate speech victims. Which is very interesting to me, because it's again this complete contradiction. How can you call someone who has been attacked and assaulted violently a survivor, and someone who's offended a victim? So just to conclude, I think that they are going to get rid of the human rights. I think that that guy from the WEF, they're going to keep on pushing this, that human rights is just a fiction. I don't necessarily support human rights in the way that it's been interpreted, but then that's because people like myself and our legal battles, which we've won through using the human rights, are barely ever heard about. I mean, I'm doing my own videos about it. Very few people will talk to me about it, and you know, we're just not going to hear about these wins and with a new interpretation of the human rights. And I argue, and have argued, that this is disability discrimination, and I've won. To say no to providing a disabled patient with healthcare from a white doctor if they request it, and I would ask for a white British doctor because I don't understand all the... I might even end up with an Irish doctor who I can't understand either. Then, you know, there's discrimination in that. It's just that I went to all these different human rights lawyers. I went to all of them, Liberty and all of that, and not one of them would represent me. I went to local lawyers and solicitors, and I asked them to represent me. None of them would represent the argument. And when I did finally win, having used the law in a different interpretation, then they wanted to jump on the back of what I'd done and said, oh yeah, we'll fight to the end now. And by that time I'd lost all confidence in solicitors, and I said, no thanks, forget it, I'll fight my own case. So it is a case that I do believe that human rights will be gotten rid of. I think that they may replace the word human with person, and I think that the majority of people will be completely comfortable with that too. They won't question it. It will be coming from the psychologists, the experts, and they'll just say, okay, we'll accept that, and they will, because they're not going to question very much. Now, we do have existing case law with human rights in it, so we are lucky in the UK that we do have common law, and I think, you know, obviously in America and Australia, New Zealand, they have that too. They don't have that in Europe. But with the existing case law, then it will be very hard to get rid of human rights anyway, I believe, from legislation or from common law. We'll have that built in now. So it's going to be tougher in the UK and America than any other country, but obviously America doesn't really have the human rights that we do. Right, well, yeah, tell me what you think. Do you like the human rights? Because I don't know what to think about them. I do like them. I'm able to use them for my own case and win, but I also see incredible manipulation, which is causing serious harm through our society in like situations like my own. So yeah, let me know, and please share, like and subscribe. Thank you.